Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Storm Collectibles JIN KAZAMA from Tekken 7, or if you were me as a kid, JIN KAZAMA, which is not how you pronounce that name. And this guy is the latest entry in the Tekken figures for Storm. Is it a good one? Is it a bad one? Well, I'm going to tell you there's a little bit of good and a little bit of bad, so there's some stuff to talk about, and we're going to have to do that because this is a review. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 7 3/8 inches to the top of his head, not his hair spike, which makes him pretty close to, let's say, 18.5 centimeters. Pretty much standard Storm size. It'll fit in fine with Heihachi or Kazuya. Should be fine. Okay, so let's talk about the aesthetics, but first we have to do a question of the day. Easy question. Which is your favorite Tekken character out of all of them? Not just the ones that Storm has released. I know a lot of people are psyched over King coming out. That should be a fun figure, but just in general, who would you like to see Storm make next, or which is your favorite Tekken character if they have already made it? Okay, good. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the aesthetic. First thing that stands out to me, two things. One, they did a good job shading the pants, I think. That's good enough. I think it could be a little bit more subtle. It goes kind of red to yellow, not enough orange, but it still looks pretty nice. Paint job is really good for the flame part right here. The other thing that stands out to me is his torso looks a little doughy. His pecs seem very small, and he doesn't seem anywhere near as cut as he should be. He's almost built like a strong man rather than a more cut person like a martial artist, which is generally how he's done. Now, I can't really show you that on the packaging, but I kind of can, because even with the artwork here, you can see he's got very, very tight muscles. So, I don't know, he's a little less defined than I think he should be. And part of the problem is in the articulation, the way they have the diaphragm joint, it's just a straight line across almost. Not perfectly straight, but pretty darn close. It doesn't follow the ribs or the lats or anything. It doesn't follow the muscles the way it should, and it throws off the look, and he does have very small pecs. So it's kind of strange looking. Once you pose him, it won't matter, but that does stand out to me. The last thing I want to say is on the faces. He does have fairly soft features, obviously, and kind of a longer pointy nose and a long face, and that's normal. But on the figure, I think they stretched his face out just a little bit too much. It's a very tall, very long face, and he looks very Anglo. And I don't think that's accurate. If I'm wrong, you guys can let me know. I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be Japanese. Maybe he's like half Japanese, but either way, his face looks very Anglo on here, and that's what I'm seeing. Otherwise, it looks pretty darn good. I like the way they did the tattoo. The arm pads and gauntlet glove things look really good. The gold on the belt is exceptionally good. We've had a lot of issues with detail work like that with Storm for belts. It's not perfect, but it's pretty dang clean. I like it, and it's nice and matte finished everywhere except for these guys, which are glossy. Or semi-gloss. Looks wonderful. Overall, very appealing figure. Definitely a little doughy and a strange face, but I like it. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for the aesthetic. As far as accessories go, we have the 3 faces. The neutral face that comes on him in the package, one angry face where his teeth are clenched, and then one where he's yelling, and they all look like the same face. He's still a little bit mousy, a little bit long nose, a little bit stretched out face. Looks good enough, though. For the hands, we have the 2 fist hands that come on in the package. We have 2 style pose hands, 2 clenchy type hands, and then 2 wider open hands. That's all very nice. And then we also do get his effect part, which is for him doing the punch. Definitely too transparent for my liking. I want a lot more saturation on that effect part, because once you pose that on a shelf or something, it's gonna disappear. It's too transparent. I want a lot more saturation out of that effect part. But it is a nice sculpt, and it does get the job done okay. So I'm gonna give this guy only an 8 out of 10. It's still a bunch of hands, a head, and an effect part, but the effect part should be a lot cleaner. Okay, let's talk about the articulation, something that's been a little hit or miss with Storm. We've seen some looseness, we've seen some tightness, we've seen some things just not work at all. I'm going to tell you right now, most of this guy works pretty well, but let's see how it goes. First thing is, for the head, we have a ball peg here, so you have a ball peg at the top. That's what the head's going to move around on a little bit, but I'll explain that in a second. And then that goes all the way down into the torso, and it's another ball peg down there, and that allows you to lean it side to side. It's very stiff, and the neck is meant to flex. And it worked. That's fine. That's pretty cool. But here's the thing. They didn't give you a ball socket. It's just a tubular hole. So when you slide the head on, it doesn't actually move around much. It just kind of wiggles on top of that ball. But also, the hole is too deep. Wow. Not going to go there. It's just too deep, and you can really sink the head in there, which isn't a problem, but it does mean that the head is not tight at any one position. It's just kind of It's kind of a slip joint situation, which isn't a problem. It's just kind of strange. It should be okay for posing. Like, you can still put it where you want it, and the head's not going to slip down too low or anything because it's still sitting on the neck. But, I don't know. It's just a weird thing I noticed. It doesn't really affect much. But if you push down, it does squish down into the neck, which is just unusual. But it's fine. It fits. There's no lollipop. He does have more of a neck than we've seen in some Storm figures, so I think that's okay. Just be aware that when you snap the head on, it will go down farther and you'll be smushing the neck. You might not want to do that. Alright, for the shoulders, we have a big ball peg that lets the shoulder move around in the socket like this. This is just a floating piece in here. You get your full rotation, that's all smooth. You get your hinge here, better than horizontal, that's all smooth. It's a little squeaky, but not in a dangerous way as far as I can tell so far. That's good. And we have our bicep swivel, that works fine. Double jointed elbow, a lot more limited because of the gauntlet right here. So you're going to have some limitations. It's going to be just around 90 degrees no matter how you work it. But these guys are separate pieces, so they can move around. If you want it to go down at the bottom, like for an uppercut or something, you can do that. So that's a good thing. And then for the wrists, we have our standard ball hinge with a straight peg on there. I think they have mostly forsaken the whole ball peg after the ball hinge, so you're not going to get that extra range, but you'll get enough out of that ball hinge. And now we come to the torso, which is the ugly part, which I don't know why they made it such a straight line. That's like rule number 1. Don't put a cut across like that. It makes them look fat. It doesn't look good. Does it function? Let's see. It leans forward pretty well, so that's fine. The head pops off a little bit too easily too. So when it leans forward though, you get a giant gap. You can see it's just a big double ball peg in there, which is a great way to do it. That's how I'm designing my line. It can work perfectly. This gap doesn't need to exist though. I'll show you in my review about my rival clans. I'll put a link somewhere over here. So you can see that you don't need that giant gap. That's a bummer. Also, for that little amount of range, you definitely don't need that giant gap. And then you also can't lean it back very far, and it still looks pretty weird. So that torso is semi-functional, but it doesn't function that well. And you have a giant gap. So it's very strange. It does lean side to side. It does rotate, but having that cut in there is very unappealing. And it doesn't function that well, so I don't quite get it. The lower part is just another ball peg. That functions pretty well. There's not a whole lot more they could do with that because you have a lot of mechanical in here for the hips. But that works pretty well forward to back, side to side, extra rotation. That's good. The belt is soft even though it's connected to the diaper. That's fine. Bringing the legs out to the side. It doesn't hit the torso, so that's fine. They go out no problem. There's a little bit of squeaking, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. There is a little bit of looseness front to back, though. That I'm a little worried about. Not much you can do about it. Bringing the leg forward does work, so that's good. Bringing it back does work. His cheeks will stretch, and in a good way, like it doesn't bunch up too much. The way they gave it just the right break and a nice butt crack on the pants sounds weird, but it works. You can bring the leg back pretty far, so that's nice. You do get a thigh swivel in there. Not a ton, but a decent amount. For the knee joint, better than 90 degrees for somebody in baggy pants. I'll take it. That should get the job done. I like it. For the ankles, we get decent range going back, which is pretty much standard for Storm. How well does it go forward? Not that far forward at all. You do have this soft pad on here, which is nice because you can still use the toe if you want to use the toe joint, so that's good. But because of that pad and because of the way they angle their joints, you can't really bring the whole foot very far forward. It is functionally a ball hinge though, because it'll swivel in there and you get your ankle rocker, so you can get a really, really nice ankle rocker out of that guy. He can do some break dancing, but you're not bringing the whole foot very far forward. So ultimately, other than the weird decision about the torso, which is probably going to be mostly hidden once you pose it anyway, it's a solid enough release. A lot of the joints are nice and smooth, and they work properly, and I like it overall. I don't think too many people are going to have too many complaints with this guy, especially since it's JIN, and people have wanted JIN for ages. Yeah, this could definitely be reworked to be a lot better, but it's not a total detriment. So I'm going to give this guy an overall 8 out of 10 for the articulation. It's functional enough, definitely janky in here, but it'll do, and the knees and hips work well enough. The feet are okay, arms are good. It's fine. Definitely a few flaws, though. Alright, so time for a final verdict on this guy. I personally really enjoy this release. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to put on the shelf against Ryu and Akuma and those guys, but... no, not but. I think it's really good. It's a lot of fun, and objectively, it's got enough good quality to back that up. I'm going to give it a final verdict of... 8.5 out of 10. 8.5. It definitely could be better. The effect part needs to be more saturated. We need some better sculpting and breaking of the articulation in here. And he does look a little doughy and soft in the torso. Even though he's got all the muscles there, they're not really as cut as they should be. He's very, very thick looking. He looks like an old version of Jin from before they had good graphics in video games and everybody was thick and blocky looking. That's kind of what he looks like. I know some of you are thinking that's what they still look like. Not like this. He's got to have way deeper ab cuts and deeper cuts around the sides here, and everything like that could just be a lot more defined. He should look less thick and more cut. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so there you go. You got my final verdict. Let me know what you guys thought about the video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Give it a thumbs down if you didn't. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.